Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metal Nation and AXS, joined today by Shi Eubank of Memphis, Tennessee, Savage After Midnight. How is everything in your world?
What's up? Man, good. Just getting up, going. It's awesome.
You guys are off to a banging start this year. You're blowing up radio, tours with Pop Evil, next up Memphis Mayfire. The debut EP 1159 drops March 8th. That's all got to feel pretty good.
Bro, it's crazy. It's literally nuts the way that it's all coming together, and just honestly, the way it's accelerating. I went to the radio conference in Vegas this past week, and just to hear all the radio PDs, talking about how the reaction, at their station, they're getting off the song. It's just overwhelming, and it's just cool, man, because we spent a lot of time. I mean, that record took over 3 years to create because of all the mishaps and working with different producers. It was just nuts. So to see it catch and grow legs, people to actually enjoy it after all the struggles we went through to be able to put it out, it just makes it all seem worth it.
Yeah, it was a long, bumpy ride getting here. It all started like a decade ago, and the EP has been in the works, as you said. I thought it was for the better part of the last 5 years, but at least the last 3 years. You said it. You initially worked with noted producers Colin Britton and Terry Date, and even our friend John Falls. How did the sound and the songs evolve over that period? Because that's a long bit of time to be working on the same. Are they even the same ones that you started with?
Actually, ironically enough, it did start 5 years ago, but that was just the pre-production on writing the record. And we just wrote. We must have written in that, 2-year span, 60, 70 songs, something like that. Moving forward, the first time we worked with Colin, did the, last two Papa Roach records. I just talked to him the other day. He's still down in Orlando working on the new A Day to Remember. And talking with him, he's got this, he's just a whole different animal himself. So the songs gravitated from, the demo state, the original state, which the indie label that we were on loved. And they started moving, in a crazy direction. I guess it would sound more like new Panic at the Disco, I don't know, stuff like that. And then the label got into it with him, so the indie we were on. And then we ended up doing it with Terry. And then working with Terry, we started back from the demos again, started working with Terry. And Terry, he is a completely different animal. What he does, he sits and listens for parts that stick out in his head. And if he hears something that sticks out, starts to tweak his ear, not even if it's in a bad way, it's just abnormal, then he'll go in there and he'll make us address the part. We'd have to go in there and we'd sit for hours on end writing and rewriting different pieces. He doesn't come in Colin will come in and help you create. Terry will not. Terry comes in, he's like, no, you're going to work that out and you're going to give me some options. And then we'll go back from the start of it where you started and go at it again. So the songs definitely took a new transformation there. And then we had to scrap that and go back again. And the label's like, look, we liked the demo stuff. We liked where you guys started. So just give us a polished version of that. So we went in with John and just did a really cleaned up version of what we started with to begin with. So it was a process all the way to get back to where we started. But this is the one thing I could say about it is when we were with Terry, I was riding around with him in his pickup truck. And anything about Terry, he's super low-key, super laid-back. We would drive around in the morning, and we were in Seattle for 3.5 months with him. And I'd get up in the morning, we would ride around, we would just talk. And I was asking him, I was like, why exactly did you choose us? And he goes, Shi, when I first was working in the scene, and I was working with Chris Cornell and the guys from Pearl Jam, all that scene. He is when everybody wanted to sound like that, I found Slayer. Then when everybody wanted to sound like Slayer, I found Pantera. When everybody wanted to sound like Pantera, I went and found the Deftones. When everybody wanted to sound like the Deftones, I went and found Limp Bizkit. He goes, the reason that I chose to work with you guys is because you don't sound like anybody else. He's and to me, that's special. So going into that third process and the label asking us to go back to where we started, Terry kind of instilled in us that it's okay to walk to the beat of your own drum. So at that point, we quit fighting with the label to have a producer, and we just brought in an engineer, and John produced it, but he just oversaw it really to make it all come together and make it stick.
Right. And speaking of, the beat of your own drum, instead of following form, you guys aren't going to release the full debut. You've opted to go with the more modern approach with the 1159 EP coming out first. Later in the year, I think you're going to drop the second half of the album as an EP as 1201. Is that right?
Yeah, we are. I mean, the way that people digest music now is it's really a single based thing, so you see rap is letting out just a ton of singles, single. And then, that's how they're moving so fast and growing so fast. And that's how they're not wasting songs either. So like if we dropped a song right now or we dropped a full record, you're going to get like one or two singles off it, maybe three, and then that record's scrapped and you've got to drop another one. So by doing it this way, it was kind of like a compromise between doing all singles and doing a full record drop. That was kind of the approach to it.
It's sort of a good way in this era of social media, attention deficit disorder, and just
right.
To sort of, you give them a little bit now, they can digest it, and then 6 months from now, you throw something else at them instead of them. You throw a whole album out, like you said. Nobody really listens to albums anymore, which is heartbreaking. And then 2 years later, you're on that cycle, you drop another album and tour in between. And I think this keeps the bands more relevant.
It really does. It keeps us fresh. And the thing about it is, they don't listen to a full record when you give them a full record, but this way they've got to listen to it. If they like you, they're going to listen for the next single, and the next single, by the time they know it, they've already listened to the entire record. They didn't give up on, they didn't go, well, I love these two songs, and just get stuck listening to those and on repeat, and letting the rest of the record go. I mean, artists spend a lot of time on these songs, for the most part. So it's a good way. Like, I like the new method. I'll say that.
Well, and it sort of begs the question, though, because you've waited so long to get this out there. How difficult was it to decide which ones to put on 1159 versus holding back for 1201?
You've seen a bunch of grown men fight. That's about what it was like. Yeah, we were in here just wanting to choke slam each other. We're like, all right, we're not 12 anymore. We can't fight like this. Yeah, it was intriguing. Everybody had their own opinion, but I guess that's what makes us, a band, and it's what keeps things unique. True.
So, listening to rock radio these days, everybody's probably heard the debut single 10 Feet Tall by now. At least they should have. It's an energetic anthem of empowerment. Tell us a little bit about the song and why you chose to release it as the first taste of the band.
Initially, I thought the song was going to come out this summer, right? Being with Sony Red, there was a lot of back and forth on the actual release date. And so in this day and age, to me, there's the whole Me Too movement and everything else. And to me, it was it's almost relatable. You got so many people out here that are, crying for this or wanting for that, or, trying to get on an equal playing field. And this song is about empowerment. So I firmly believe that if you want to be more powerful yourself, you will learn to empower other people. You won't push people down, you'll pick them up. To me, that's the only way to build a true empire, is to reach to everybody around you and pull them up to their maximum potential. Because if they surpass you in life, they're going to turn around and they're going to, if they're a good person, they're going to feed back into the ones that help them get into that position. It's just that time. I mean, initially I thought it was going to be a summer release because it's really like a summer song, but it ended up working really well through the winter. And I guess it's just because of the statement that it makes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that whole argument there that you just made is that's the difference between confidence and insecurity in how you treat other people. So 100%.
I've had a bunch of new fans, write me, I take time to write people back. They hit me in my DMs on Instagram, and had this one chick on there that was just like, hey, I just want to tell you thank you for taking the time to even respond to me because nobody else will. And it was just that's sad, that people aren't taking the time somebody's taking the time to talk to you. Take the time to say something back. I mean, what does it take? 2 seconds to acknowledge somebody's presence and make them feel like a human?
Absolutely. So, and you guys did a great video for it. It was part performance, part animation, which is pretty cool. Tell us how that came together.
Man, that's so wild, dude. Our manager was sitting there watching SportsCenter. He's like a big sports nut. And he saw an animated version of, the cast on there. And then in the lower corner, he saw this guy's logo. His name's Howard Russell. So he started digging into it, and he found Howard's contact. And then he called me. He's like, hey, man, I got this idea, because we kept pitching around. This record's taken so long, and the band's got so much rich history, of like being out there, being road dogs, like everybody that we've hung with, all the trials and tribulations of being a band, wanting to kill each other, eating ramen, cooking raviolis on the motor of your van in the dead of winter. Like, we've done it all. So we were trying to figure out a way that we could tell the story and the history of the band in a unique way. So he called me, and it was just like a light bulb went off. He was like, dude, nobody's going to pay attention to like a biography. He goes, what about comics? And I was like, oh my God, that's ingenious. I was like, yeah, for sure. He goes, I got the dude. And we were just talking about comics at first, and then it started pulling into, hold on, what if we do the videos part animation, and then they're the segue to get people to, to drive them to want to read the comics. And in the comics, we'll be dropping like Easter eggs, what we call them, Easter eggs of the band's history. So one is, so there's us as little kids, and we're like fully tattooed, which is rad. And then there's the versions of us, which are modern day, like, the band. Mm-hmm. And then there's what we turn into after midnight, these big savage creatures. But the city that the savages live in is called Empire City, which was our previous band name that we had to give up when we signed with Sony, because there was somebody in like Denmark or Iceland or somewhere that had the name, and we would have had to go under a different alias in Europe. It's pretty cool, man. Like, there'll be a lot going on with the animation stuff. You'll see a lot more of it.
Yeah, I was going to say that's going to track through all your videos as you move forward, right?
Yeah. It's super rad.
I've listened to the full EP now, and 10 Feet Tall is in a way indicative of the rest of the sound of the EP, but it's also just one element of the overall style. Like, King definitely has some heavier groove to it. Overrated, definitely. Mm-hmm. Overrated is definitely a radio-ready single right there. Tell us a little bit about the overall sound that you guys, put together.
We were writing the records, and just going to be like straight up honest with you. Nobody in the band wanted to say it, but there was this underlying tone a few years back when we even started writing this stuff, that the band may not be together anymore. It was because over the years we were, all right, if you sound more like this, and then we could do this with you. If you sound more like that, we could do this. If you're more like this band, if you dress more like this, and we were pulled in so many different directions, chasing what we wanted, that we lost ourselves in that. And when we went in to write this record, we went in just to write. We didn't even anticipate this going anywhere. This was just us venting and just just writing songs, because that we wanted to write, not with a certain format, not with a certain intent, not with any kind of like motive behind it. So to be honest with you, what you're hearing is just us. Like, we weren't like, okay, well, we're going to write a few that sound like this, sound like that. It was just like, we were tired of doing that. Of course we go back in and we're able to pair them up a little bit more according to kind of the sound. But it's just raw, straight up us, what's in our head, what we're feeling, and with no manufactured intent on it whatsoever.
Right, and that gives you, as Terry Date said, sort of your own unique signature. Although I will say, in listening to the EP, I did catch hints of, like, Bring Me the Horizon, Adelita's Way, Papa Roach, and even some Shinedown. But who are the band's global influences?
I would say now, which is odd, because you got to think, so Bring Me the Horizons come to the forefront of this electronic kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And these songs that you're hearing, they are every bit of 5 years old. So we were kind of, before they even came around, I'm not saying that we were all kind of onto the same train of thought without being on the same train of thought. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, of course, they've taken that sound and manifest this huge thing out of it, and it's unbelievably sick. My hat goes off to Ollie and all them, Ollie and Jordan, because they are just monsters. Like, I'm a huge fan. I love how they're starting to pull what listeners that were giving up on rock, they're starting to pull them back in, you know, because they're like, the younger generations are, you know, that are super delved into hip hop that don't know much about rock, just because, you know, their cousins and stuff that are introducing them to music aren't teaching them rock. They're teaching them rap, and they're teaching them EDM, stuff like that. So to me, this is like bridging that gap.
Right.
So to me, I like, you know, it's a brilliant thing. I don't think they set out to do it, but it's what's happening, and it's super cool to watch. So Bring Me the Horizon is definitely a big one. Papa Roach, like Jeremiah's favorite guitar player, our guitar player's favorite guitar player is Jerry Horton. So all the Papa Roach stuff, and of course Colin absolutely killed it with those last two records with him. Let's say a bunch of stuff like that. I'm into like the new Attila stuff. It's dope. We just have, I guess we're just a melting pot. We just like music.
Well, that sort of brings me to one of my last questions here is, how does the songwriting process within Savage After Midnight sort of work? Are there one or two principal writers? Are you all involved? I mean, you were saying you sort of have 5 different people with 5 different egos and styles and things they want to do. How do you bring that all together to write?
Oh, boy. It's a good one. Okay, so we usually don't write more than 2 guys in a room. It'll usually start with, it's usually the 3, JT, Jeremiah, JT being the DJ, Jeremiah the guitar player, or myself writing everything, but we either do it on our own or in a pairing of 2, because when we get 3 together, it seems to be a little much. So we'll write the basis for the song as 2 of us, and then we'll bring it to the band, and we'll take it and we'll start to dissect it as a band. And Landon, the bass player, he writes and has written the majority of the drum and bass parts. So we'll come in with like either an electronic song that we've sang a melody over, or we'll come in with, you know, just an acoustic guitar based song, and then we'll start to transform it from there. But it's usually never more than 2 of us at the start of it to write the basis of the song, and then we take it, and then it's an all-in effort. At that point, we go, okay, well, now let's everybody put their hands in, and let's figure out how to make this the best that we can.
Before we get out of here, just for fun, where's the strangest place you've ever been struck with inspiration for a song?
Oh, gee, that is a brilliant question. God, that's going to make me think. Oh, so, I mean, I just write. It doesn't matter if it's something that can be used for the band or not. So I'm going to answer this like abroad, because I even write stuff for myself, like solo stuff, but it's not like I'm trying to push that or something. It's just I create. So even if it doesn't fit with the band, I don't just try to like throw it away. So I think the craziest thing I've ever caught inspiration on was a really, really old song, like, you know, years ago, called City Lights, and I was on a Ferris wheel. And as you're moving around, you come to the top of it, you're catching the entire city. And I was in Las Vegas, and I, you know, came to the top of the Ferris wheel, you know, because it's got that gigantic Ferris wheel, and it's just seeing the city span out across. It was really inspirational. I guess that's probably the weirdest. I mean, usually it's in my car driving that I sit there and hum melodies and, you know, take little voice memos and things like that. But yeah, I would guess the most unique place is sitting on top of a Ferris wheel.
Shi Eubank of Savage After Midnight, the debut EP 1159 drops March 8th on Sony Red. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. Hopefully we catch you when you're out on the road.
Absolutely. We go out with Memphis Mayfire this Friday, so if anybody's, they can go to our socials, check it out. Go to savageaftermidnight.com. Check out the tour dates. If we're in your area, we'd love to see you. So keep it savage, doggy.